Thank you all for joining today in this special workshop that we have in Lillestrøm, in wet Lillestrøm, but we're quite nice and dry in here. Today will be a full workshop with a lot of different elements, and I'll show you the agenda a bit later on, mainly talking about open standards. Open standards are important for various reasons, and we will get to that a bit later on. The workshop is called openBIM and Digital Passports. Are you fit for 55? And I think those that have been there yesterday know what is meant by fit for 55, and if not, our first speaker will explain it in a bit more detail in 5 minutes or so. Just a few household recommendations, if I may say so. So the purpose today is to create some kind of an open platform. Please feel free to speak up, exchange thoughts now and during the breaks, because we have 2 coffee breaks today, 1 lunch break. Make most use of the speakers, ask them some questions afterwards. So please be present, try not to chat too much with your neighbors, and if so, please do it in a very low voice. Be present, be active, proactive, to the point, because we have a very tight schedule. I'm aware of that. The idea basically today is to get everybody to share what they have done in this world of open standards, and share those points of view. So for the online participants, make sure that you are muted, and I think that's done automatically. If you want to share, or if you have some questions, please put them in the chat, and we will monitor those along the day. Yeah. So, and keep your mobile at hand, not too close. Again, please do not try to multitask. We will have a survey and some questions, some interactivity as of the second part, which will start after the coffee break. How did we get to this workshop? Well, as I mentioned yesterday, for those who have been there yesterday, we had a sort of a roundtable in Rome 6 months ago. We were talking about a few topics. Products, manufacturers, how does openBIM work for manufacturers? How can buildingSMART International attract more other stakeholders than the traditional ones that participate, like construction companies, like academia, like manufacturers. So the conclusion of this was that we needed a broader variety of stakeholders to participate. Everybody needs to have its voice within the buildingSMART International community. And we need to come up with a clearer value proposition. Why would anybody want to invest, let's say, in open standards? What is the business value? Are there any use cases? And this is basically the reason why we have this workshop today. There's a QR code that will guide you to the invitation, the initial invitation. Today will be mainly about products, but linked also to the generic elements, so data templates, data dictionaries. We'll talk a lot about carbon footprint, because sustainability is something, and circular economy is something that is picking up quite heavily and quite quickly. The timelines are very tight for the industry to address this. And of course, the data workflows. How do you connect all of those different elements of digital data together? This is it's not a bit off the point, but what I want to show with this is that we need to collaborate if we want to get somewhere. This is not waiting for the other one to move first. This is about collaboration. And the next one, I think, is also put yourself in the shoes of the other person, what their issues might be. Yeah, so this is basically what I hope we will get out of this today at the end of the day. This is a slide that Leon showed yesterday. Why is open so important? So why are open standards so important? It's for the long term. It's about collaboration and consensus, as I just explained. And it's control your digital destiny, because the train is moving, and the longer you wait, well, the longer you will be hit by train strikes or whatever you might call it. This is the agenda, as I said, quite extensive. We will start on an intro on the eco-design sustainable products regulation and the construction products regulation with two speakers, Oscar, who will join us online, and Pedro, who is here in the room. Then we will have a bit of an introduction, because we acknowledge that not everyone is aware of what we talk when we talk about open standards, what those are. So very short introduction to these. And then after the coffee break, we go into the heart of the topic with use cases. We've got in total today, I think 21 speakers from 17 companies. So quite a lot of, or organizations, quite a lot of things that will be shared. So in two pieces, just before and after the lunch, then we will have a panel discussion on the topic of sustainability with four of our guest speakers. And we will then have a coffee break, and then we will split up into two breakout rooms discussing on, and we'll get to that a bit later on, discussing on two separate topics. What I probably do is just put my hand and say, this side goes in this breakout room and this side goes in this breakout room, so that we have a nice mix of participants and getting a view from all sides. After which we will have a sort of a wrap-up with conclusions of the breakout rooms, and hopefully maybe some next steps, concrete next steps that we can move towards to. With this, I would like to leave the floor to Oscar. Oscar, are you there?
Okay, so sorry, I was not sure because I cannot hear anything. Sorry for this interruption. First of all, sorry for not being there. I know that online connections are always a bit difficult, and I think that the connection is not perfect, but I hope you can benefit from my short presentation. So just for your information, I'm Oscar Nieto. I'm working for the European Commission, and I'm in charge of the construction products regulation, which is the regulation for the placing on the market of construction products. The reason why I'm speaking about the construction products regulation is because this really fits perfectly with the agenda today. The Fit for 55 package is the initiative of the European Commission to reduce the greenhouse gas emissions by 55% by 2030, which means that all sectors need to really work very hard in this specific task. And of course, construction was very early identified as one of the key sectors to really be in the scope of this Fit for 55. And construction products is one of the elements of the picture. Of course, it's not the only element, so we need to make sure that buildings and all construction reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. But if we have already a starting point in the construction products, this will be really the element that will make the difference. And what I want to speak about is mainly about the construction products regulation and the eco-design for sustainable products regulation. Both initiatives were adopted in March 2022 and will be ready probably next year. We are now in the negotiations. This is one of the reasons why I cannot be with you, because we are very heavily involved in the process. And you see in the screen that we have two main blocks or reasons why we need to revise this legislation. First is because it was not working very well for some products. It was difficult to fit with the market needs. You have at the bottom the digitalization. The current regulation already allows digitalization, but it was not fully implemented. There were some preliminary actions that were very useful, but it was not really possible to digitalize the documents of the regulation. And you have in the right what we already said before, the sustainability side of the picture. If we need to really deliver a lot of information from construction products to make sure that the future buildings and construction really is changing in the way we want. What is the main actions in relation to the Fit for 55 and also the European Green Deal is to deal with the renovation of buildings. This is one of the key elements. We want to make sure that all the buildings that are renovated in the coming years go in the direction of these Fit for 55 goals. And also there is a parallel regulatory initiative initiative of the Commission, that is the revision of the Energy Performance of Building Directive, which is really very important and will also deliver in the field of sustainability. And the other side of the coin of sustainability is circularity. If you focus a lot on greenhouse gas emissions, you may also consider the circular economy, because otherwise you may take the wrong decisions. And this is the other important element that we are taking into consideration. So that's really the goal, and what I will try to explain is the means to do it. The legal structure of the regulation is quite complex, but I will try to explain how it works in practice to make sure that really is useful. The problem we have in the market is that every regulator, and even sometimes the same regulator in the same country, establish requirements for construction products that are sometimes difficult to identify, difficult to fulfill, and complex. This also applies to digitalization. If you go to sell products in different countries, you will have difficulties to sell, because in some countries they use some digitalization approaches, in others there are databases. And at least in the European market, this is regulated, and the Commission can establish rules for the marketing of construction products. And the system is quite strong, because in practice, if there are regulatory requirements related to construction products, the regulators at national level can define the building codes, but if they need information from the products, they cannot establish the requirement directly to the manufacturers. They need to be established in the context of the European Union, meaning they will need to go through the European standards endorsed by the European Commission. So if a manufacturer in one country needs an additional performance, is requested by the regulators an additional performance for a window, for example, in the context of the CPR, this information can only be delivered through a European standard. And if a regulator has this demand, he can go to the Commission and ensure that this element is included. This will ensure that when the manufacturer assesses and declares the performance of the product, this product can travel all around Europe without any problem, and there is no limitations. And they are not obliged to fulfill every national provision or every national requirement. But always I have to say that this also applies to importers. So if an importer really places products in the European market, a product manufacturer in any country, they will need to fulfill the same obligation. So this is really a level playing field for the manufacturers in Europe. And in theory, this is quite straightforward, but the complexity is quite high, because we really need to collect all the regulatory needs from all member states, put them into the standardization system, and deliver these standards that will be in the end declared by the manufacturer. And as any other initiative, we are facing a lot of difficulties, because the construction products is a system that is built within another, I would say, cloud of systems that interfere. We have this digital product passport that is mainly developed in the context of the eco-design for sustainable product regulation. We have boilers, for example, in this field. We have the SKIP database, which is an online database for the declaration of substances of very high concern. This is also hosted by the European Commission. Some products can be registered through poison centers to provide toxicological information in case of they are eaten by children or these kind of things. We have April, the energy labeling, and on top of the public systems, we have also a lot of systems for market surveillance for the notified bodies that verify the data. So in parallel, we have national systems with information about the environment. So you see a lot of data, a lot of complexity, and very difficult to really coordinate. So the goal of the CPR is to try to reduce this complexity, and the tool we want to use is the same tool that we are using in the eco-design structure, so a digital product passport. And you will understand, and you probably know better than me, that the data demands are increasing. You have some examples of these data demands. Of course, this information cannot be simplified. It's not so easy to define like a washing machine. You cannot say this insulation is A, B, or C easily, because it can be A in one application, B in other application, and a total nonsense in other applications. So it's not so easy to define a business to consumer tool that will deliver this data. So in practice, what we are forced to do is to deliver really big data sets. This is an example of a data set for environmental information in the context of the current construction process regulation and in the future construction process regulation. So you see huge tables, difficult to read, that will only make sense if they are properly integrated into digitalization tools. After my presentation, I think there is somebody which will speak about data template. This is exactly the point. So we need to ensure that the data templates are harmonized in a way that at least the data is the same, is clearly assessed according to the same in the same way, and is placed on the market following the same approach. And the specific issue of the digital product passport is really more or less explained in this figure. So the manufacturer, when he will place a product in the European market, he will need to put the CE mark into the product with a data carrier. This data carrier will connect to a DPP registry. The Digital Product Passport registry is the same that will be used in the Eco Design for Sustainable Products Regulation. And this DPP registry will connect the product with the data that will be in a database or system, which means that it's not fixed yet. We are discussing in the negotiations if our system for hosting the documents will be in the hands of manufacturers, will be a distributed system, or will be a centralized database. This is not decided, but in any case, the DPP registry will stay, and in this way, through the data carrier, you will get the information. We call it in our regulation the declaration of performance and conformity, but also information and all the needs that you will use in the building assessment. For example, this huge table about environmental performance, but also the technical properties of the product, the dimensions, the weight, everything you need from the product. This supposes really quite a big, I would say, a big burden for the industry. But if you think that now this information is delivered many times to different stakeholders in different formats with different approaches, we really think that in the medium term, the efficiency and the competitiveness of the industry will increase, because from a kind of very, very abstract system in which you need to fulfill every requirement, you will be able to just deliver this digital product passport and satisfy the demands of most of the markets. And one big question that we always have when we discuss these kind of initiatives is how granular should we be? And this is clearly defined in the regulation. So it's a lot, it's very granular. There is a concept in the regulation that defines when you need to have a different digital product passport. This concept is called product type, and it depends. It's a manufacturer choice on the basis of the rules established in the regulation. But in principle, it will be quite granular, meaning that if the performance of the product is different, you will need to always have a different digital product passport. But at the same time, these numbers are really high. We have a lot of manufacturers, but we really think that this is the game changer. So if we really want to be ready for the Fit for 55, we need to first deliver a lot of information, and this information will be used in the right way. And for this reason, we really need your support. Something I want to mention, all the system and the processes, as I said before, are based on the standards. And this is what we will continue doing. So the DPP registry, the ESPR, the CPR are all using a standardized content. There is already an ongoing discussion about the standardization request that will try to benefit from the field of standardization on how this can be integrated. We in our unit are running a study to identify the issues of this database or system and how to implement it, with the support also of standardization organizations and also the industry. And our goal is to try as much as possible to use the existing tools, the existing knowledge, and make sure that it is really integrated into the regulation. In other words, it was even written in the council suggestion for the CPR. We want to build a data dictionary for the construction products in relation to this their performance, just to make sure that this is fully harmonized and there is no discrepancy about what means or what should be included in these declarations. And one of the questions that we also receive quite often, I want to clarify, we cannot implement the CPR for all products at the same time. This is really a huge system. We have 444 standards, very complex, very detailed. And what we are doing is a progressive implementation according to the priorities of member states. And the good news is that this implementation already started a couple of years ago. It's running well. We have the first standardization request in the pipeline for the first two products, precast concrete products and structural metallic products. And we are already working with the other 4 product groups that you have in the screen. And if with this planning of around 4 groups running in parallel, we really expect that by 2030, we will, of course, not have all the products in the new regulation with the detailed information, but at least we will have the most relevant products, the structural products, products with a high environmental value and high environmental impact regulated, and these will be integrated into the system. And sorry again for the technical problems. I hope it was clear enough. And if you have questions, of course, I'm here to try to help you. Thank you.
Can you hear me? Okay.
Yes, now I can hear you.
Oh, super. Thank you. Anybody? We have 6 minutes for questions before we have Pedro on stage. Any questions that you want to ask Oscar? This is the moment. Yesterday it was pre-recorded. Yes. We have one question there.
Yeah. So my question is, who hosts the DPP registry?
Okay, it's not defined yet because this is part of the Eco-Design for Sustainable Products Regulation, but this will be hosted by the European Commission. We need to define this, and there will be a legal implementation that will come in the coming years, but in principle, this will be a registry by the European Commission.
Okay. One more.
Great, thank you. One question. You mentioned about products will be according to standards, but for example, those standards may have a combination of, end up in combination of, I don't know, hundreds or thousands of products. Would that be anyway necessary? Will it be necessary to register any of the new products? Maybe I'm putting the example of concrete, for example. You have thousands of combinations of type of products, or concrete will be, for example, one only product?
Yes. So concrete, if the performance of the concrete is the same, you can use the same digital product passport. So if you produce always exactly the same concrete and you deliver it to the different workplaces, but it's exactly the same product, you can have only one DPP and with the information. If you are doing a recipe, a tailor-made recipe for the concrete, every recipe will require a DPP, but this is not the usual practice. So usually you have less granular implementation. In this sense, the construction product regulation is a bit more flexible than the ESPR. And we will have a lot of products, but really, if the performance is the same, there won't be any obligation to have a separate DPP.
Okay. Yes, here we've got Michel.
Yes, a lot of small and medium enterprises are doing products, eventually even handcrafted. So is there any idea what is at the end the product that needs to be in the database and what not?
Yes, only the products for which there is a harmonized standard with the obligation to deliver a declaration of performance. And this is independent from the size of the company. So if the company is an SME, for example, they will have the same obligation that a big company. The difference is that really there are some provisions in the regulation that will facilitate the work of SMEs, and they will save cost, for example, by sharing some testing and doing activities together, or even a declaration without assessment when they fulfill certain conditions. So the idea is that for the market, there won't be any difference. For the companies, there will be tools to facilitate that they fit the same expectations than the market. But if we allow SMEs to go low level, this will be seen as a kind of a way to also demote the work of the SMEs, and this is not what we want. So this is really a very good question and a very difficult issue, but we really want to establish a level playing field that will be always in the side of delivering information to the customer with the same kind of approach.
I have a question on the BIM side. In BIM today, Revit, ArchiCAD, all these different softwares used in BIM, they have their own definitions of properties, of characteristics for products. How do you see software like that, and also marketplaces? How will this affect the software industry?
Yes. This is something that we will need to develop together with the industry to make sure that we do not undermine the existing tools, but the CPR should focus on really deliver the technical content for the data dictionary, and should be more technology neutral, because we really understand that the regulation cannot evolve at the same pace that the digitalization and the software. So our goal is to define the technical concepts in a data dictionary, and the exchange, the data, how this will be integrated into different software will be open for the market. We will just focus on really this. So if we have, for example, insulation, and we have the EU value of an insulation, we will define how to assess it, how to declare the units, everything, but we will not define how this can be exchanged between projects or systems, or how it will finally end into a software.
Okay, thank you, Oscar. We have to go to the next speaker. Just wanted to add that Oscar works for the European Commission, as you know, DG GROW in construction, but he is a civil engineer by education, and he has been the technical director of Construction Products Europe. So just to emphasize, he knows what he talks about, and he is the best person on the best spot in the European Commission to get the expertise and experience over to his peers there. Thank you, Oscar.
Thank you for your words. Really, this is what I try, at least. Thank you. I have a very good event.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Pedro Meda, is professor at the University of Porto, nice city, researcher and project manager at the Instituto de Construção, the Construction Institute, Faculty of Engineering. Obrigado. You can present from here.
Yes, the notes are here.
Oh.
So I was hoping that Oscar would facilitate my life, and in a way, is he listening?
You? No, no.
No, Oscar, no. Oh.
I don't think so.
Well, I was hoping that he facilitated a bit my life, and actually he did. But on the other way, he forced me to have more comments, so I need my notes. So, good morning. It is a pleasure to be here today to talk about one of the key construction enablers in the context of twin transition, that is the digital product passports. Many thanks to Enzo and to buildingSMART for inviting me and Porto University to present in this event. This is the traditional table of contents, but in a nutshell, I would like to say that the presentation is based on facts, so I will use fact-based approach, mixed with some doubts. So some of the questions almost hit on the place, the previous questions hit on the place that I'm also going to raise, and in the field of practice, practical experience to anticipate and tackle some obstacles. So in that respect, I hope also to provide some answers to some of the questions. So this was a table of contents, sorry. Fact 1, EU is putting high pressure on the Green Deal and Fit for 55, where the construction sector is one of the main contributors for that accomplishment. The Ready for 55 mentions a lot of energy-related aspects, more green energy, fewer emissions, but I would also add here another thing that is a bit out of the Fit for 55, that is all the regulations that are related to waste and circular economy. So if construction is the core, or is part of the core for this goal, us as a sector need to improve measuring abilities, because nowadays we can measure carbon emissions in buildings, but we need to do it better, more streamlined. To get references, to that we need data availability. Some SMEs, some contractors might struggle to provide that data, and tools to improve how we estimate these carbon emissions, to then set new targets and eventually accomplish and hopefully surpass the goals that are being raised. Fact number 2, I mentioned about data, I mentioned about tools. So digital tools and sustainability have a bond. And twin transition is where data is digital, enabling greener outcomes. However, the things are not so simple as we could or we would like to see in this image. And this leads to fact 3, the Sustainable Built Environment Vision that was developed by Construction Products Europe. We in Porto University set up a framework and we expanded this vision just to highlight a bit how it can be more complex. We start with 4 key dimensions: environmental impact, eco-design, mostly, technical performance, CPR, DOPs, Declaration of Performance, waste, where we have all the directives on waste management in construction and not just in construction, and also circular economy, and of course, all the aspects related to digitalization. The good and interesting thing is that we see twin transition, we see Green Deal, we see digital eco-design, CPR, waste framework, and we see digital product passports at the core, at the center. So with this, I guess that we are in the right room today. Then another fact, 4, product passport-ish is already a reality, or a part of it at minimum. So we don't need to start from scratch. Digital product passports is something new, but not completely new when we are on the data side. Oscar, and this is where the comment comes, regarding the granularity that Oscar was mentioning, construction products already disclose properties. Some, well, in paper, in many formats, okay? These are just some examples. Sorry, the trademarks and etc., but it was something that I could capture when I was on site or having a lunch or waiting in a queue. Just, let's say, random photos. But all these products disclose properties. Some go beyond the requirements and point to maintenance. And I got this and I found it very, very interesting. Sunglass manufacturers are already using this label to mention that they are using recycled content to some extent, 100%, wow, for the frames. So this is already happening, but it's not a digital product passport. Going and meeting CPR, why it's not a digital product passport? Because the construction products regulation that was the first version comes from end of 80s, was focused on what Oscar also mentioned, that was the performance. thermal behavior, acoustics, safety and health, energy performance, fire. Those were the requirements at that time. So a label was, say, good to start. But nowadays, we need more. And on that, the D was missing, okay? So nowadays, we need, and they're part of the requirements, waste, life cycle cost, warranties, construction and demolition, sustainability, LEED, BREEAM. Well, I would name, say, a lot of them. And the question is the declaration of performance. So that is the fact. The declaration of performance is not, let's say, enough for that. But eventually, the digital product passport might be. So DPP can be the instrument or the ecosystem for collecting, storing, and managing all these properties. I will skip a little bit this because Oscar mentioned that what we are discussing is part of the proposals of the Eco Design and Construction Products Regulation. You can see this afterwards. Mainly, Digital Product Passport is based on the Eco Design Directive. This proposal had some articles specific in addressing to digital product passports, and the EU Construction Products Regulation has, so the proposal from May 2022, so a proposal, has one thing that I need to highlight. It's not digital product passport, is product database concept that was raised, okay? But the proposals that are being discussed, and as Oscar mentioned, still, I'll say, have some issues on the granularity, on the details. And they mention some aspects of what I call the D requirements, okay? And this leads to two aspects, two main ideas that are relevant for digital product passports. One is the D requirements, data authentication, reliability, etc., 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 and I'd say more are missing, okay? The discussion that is being held at this moment will lead to more technicalities on digital product passports. So don't question me on that, okay? But you can question me on this. Fact check 6. And this is what is at the core of digital product passports. And I call it the famous Rockwool example because some people already heard me talking about this several times. But now I have a larger audience and I will deliver it again. So the objective of the digital product passport is to have the data of a product, Rockwool, and it needs to capture all the data through the building life cycle. So this could be the declaration of performance. Typically, we have a label, then it is in the file, we store it, the owner has it, then it becomes waste. This was the past. What the Eco Design and CPR aim to do is to enable that this Rockwool that was used for 50 years in a building will become a new product or a recycled product to be used inside the construction sector. For example, becoming the isolation material of a composite product such as a sandwich panel and follow the life cycle, or go to a complete different sector as the electrodomestic, where it will become the isolation of a oven. So when we are talking about the digital requirements of digital product passports, is to manage, capture, enable, and trace the data through 50 years plus 30 years in crossing sectors from one to the other. So these are still proposals, and I highlighted but, because there are some commitments that EU, the industry, well, the world cannot run away from it. And that is why we thought that we could anticipate some things. So we assumed So one assumption, we assume that a digital product passport would be the data carrier for all the properties, all of them. Even, can discuss, but even the ones that are on SCIP database, etc. Okay? And we focused, and this is important, we focused on the renovation wave. Oscar mentioned that renovation wave is key on the European strategy. So we had a project in Portugal together with Trondheim University here in Norway, where we look to building refurbishment, and we try to trial digital product passports at the most. You can visit the website, you have a QR code there, and basically what we did is that we set up, based on two examples, refurbishment of a residential building and railway refurbishment, we set up use cases to set up a product catalog with digital product passports based on data templates. And we did this in Portuguese. We did not follow the CPR priorities, as Oscar mentioned. We follow a different strategy. And those were what is meaningful when we are talking about buildings, what is meaningful when we are talking about railways. So these were the products that we approached. The ones that were more relevant from the perspective of cost, the ones that were more relevant from the perspective of energy efficiency, waste, etc. And we did it, we have the product catalog, we use co-builder tools to do this, and we did it in Portuguese. Why? Because we need to talk with manufacturers. So this had to be in their language. So we basically tried to set up several digital product passports. We had success in most of them because a lot of data was disclosed. And this, well, in Portuguese, mostly will not understand, but this is the equivalent to the table that Oscar presented. It's the EPD properties, okay? And some manufacturers actually could deliver that data to us today, okay? In a spreadsheet, in PDFs, etc., and we just do the rest. So we had a digital product passport-ish. Another thing that we worked, and this is the second thing that I want to say to you, is the data framework reasonability. So we tried to look to a survey from the European Commission on the user's need for information on construction products. We took the European Master Data Guideline, and we took the properties that are specifically mentioned, or we anticipate that will be part of the eco-design, the construction products regulation, and levels, the methodology to assess the sustainability of all buildings in Europe. That is what is meant. So these were, let's say, the data requirements that we had, and we basically tried to get a list of properties, attributes, data sets, we can call it whatever we want, and we tried to be not so extensive, but to some detail that could be part of a survey to manufacturers. So we asked them to each one of those properties how difficult it was to get them, and what was the willingness or the stress that disclosing that property would cause. 0. Oops. I'm almost going to the end. And this is the overview or the landscape for that. Basically, and in a nutshell, there are some parts that are very, very easy for them to deliver. Okay, wait. Usually, they don't do it in the declaration of performance, but it is, I'll say, nothing difficult for them. But then, if we go and we understand what is being said in the eco-design, aspects such as composition, acquisition cost, general environmental product declaration data, global warming potential, life cycle cost, and carbon environmental footprint, it can be difficult or it can cause stress, or both. Okay, so this is an issue because basically what manufacturers are saying, and this is the result of survey, but we can generalize it a bit, is that some of the things that will be mandatory in eco design are not so easy or cause some stress. And a lot of those things are related with secrets of the business, advantage that some have to others. A lot of aspects are here. So to conclude, digital product passports will become mandatory. I think that the proposals cannot run away from that. Trialing experiences prove that this is possible, or that it is possible to start the implementation in a short time. I would say immediately. Okay, we did it already, or we started already. There are still ambiguities on the content, data, and digital aspects. Oscar mentioned that. Some requirements raise issues on the manufacturer's willingness to provide data, and this needs further discussion. And policy actions on DPPs should consider all these aspects, the properties that are associated to sustainability and etc. Okay. So to end, this is, and we saw previously in that sustainable built environment vision that digital product passports are at the core. I did not want to change this it's this figure from the European Commission, where they have the scales of the built environment. I could have products right here. I will place it in the next presentation that I have, hopefully. But that is the interesting part. We need to move from product information to digital logbooks, from smart buildings to smart cities, from BIM to digital twin, and this will, say, lead to these different scales of the built environment. So, thank you.
Thank you, Pedro. Yes, I see you. You were saying 0 at a certain moment. I think you were looking at the time.
Yes,
right?
yes.
Okay.
That was a private joke.
Perfect.
For
Thank you. We don't have time for Q&A, but you know, Oscar,
Oscar.
Pedro is here. The all Iberic Peninsula. Pedro is here, so feel free to ask him some questions. He will be there tomorrow as well, half a day, I think.
Yes.
Yeah.
No, it's the entire day.
The entire day. Great.
Entire
Perfect.
day. So I'm here.
Super.
Okay.
Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much. Thank you. May I invite Lars to the podium? Lars is the CEO and co-founder of CoBuilder. I think everybody knows him. Would not even have to present him. Quite a long track record in the AEC industry, and formerly also working for Glaba, which is a subsidiary of Saint-Gobain. So again, somebody with some background knowledge, practical knowledge. There you go. Here you are.
Thank you.
Thank you, Lars.
Can you hear me now? Yeah. Just want to give some good news. Yesterday, the one that saw me presenting a slide on the EU Commission, a study on this CPR database, we won it. So it's going to be quite interesting to work with the Commission, I have to say. And with a lot of players here, buildingSMART, GS1, Pedro, yeah. There's a lot of actors being involved in this work, and it's very important to understand. Hopefully, when you saw Oscar's presentation and now the latest presentation from Pedro, the connection to BIM and digital is very important to understand here. And to look at it from, you had a slide, and so where you showed, do I see a 6 or a 9? And I think that slide is really important to understand. What is all this about? Because yeah, we really need to define how we are going to define the information within the industry. Now, I'm going to talk about something. This was something I saw 10 years ago. I did some work we did a EU project. I was leading that for FIEC, which is also a partner in this CPR database. But FIEC is the contractors in Europe. And we had a study on how to define information. How can we exchange information from design, construction, operations, and end of life? That was kind of that 10 years ago. And to make a long story short, there was one guy here that pushed me on an airport. It was Øyvind Roth sitting there. And I showed him some Excels, and he said, Lars, you should really go this standardization way. I said, okay, I have never heard about, I mean, why should we engage in standardization? So then we engaged with standardization. And I'm going to talk about now and present on a higher level. I'm going to show you the standards. I'm not going into technical details. I'm just going to, on a higher level, explain why we need these standards. So the work that we have been doing and contributing to is within the SEN 442 activities led by Lisbeth and Øyvind here in this audience. They're there. Can you just raise your hands? Yeah, that's the people. And this is really important. We need standards to be able to exchange information, and we need to define the information that we are exchanging. And this goes for any. This could be CAD, this could be ERP systems, this could be EDI order files, could be anything. And I'm working with many of those different actors, and they see things from very different perspectives, but the information that we are exchanging should be agreed upon between System 1, System 2, Actor 1, Actor 2. So these standards here, this is what we in buildingSMART understand as BSTD. So it's a dictionary standard. This standard here is how, and this is maybe the most important one. I met some French people, and they were talking about properties. This is not a property, this is a property. And they had this huge debate within France. What is a property? And how to define this property. So they had standardization work for 5-6 years with the whole industry. How to define a property in a dictionary. And that is a fundamental standard because it defines how we define properties in a dictionary. I'll come back to some slides on this. And then this was the work that we did with FIEC, with the co-builder. We saw that we need to structure the ontology. So using the dictionary, how to structure data, not only for products, but for this space, for this system wall. How to define properties for the wall, properties for this space, or for a product. So the work that we did when we started working with this, we worked with the Construction Product Europe for many, many years to try to align where the manufacturers' need were and the digital needs are. So how can we connect that? And I've been working and attending a lot of buildingSMART events, and we've been working a lot with buildingSMART on dictionaries. And I've been sitting in product room and trying to get the other rooms to understand, hey guys, this is really important. We need to structure data in dictionaries. That's really important. And this will unlock a lot of things. You saw Pedro's slide on waste. What does it cost? What is the footprint? What is the U value? All these things is connected. And this is what dictionaries will bring. So dictionaries and data templates for products, it's data templates. This standard, when that was developed, actually there's another committee working on EPD, Environmental Product Declarations. They need to transfer their data into a template. So they use this standard to develop this standard. So when you saw the Excel spreadsheet from Oscar, it's actually the work done here. And that's an ISO committee which has standardized information on environmental aspects for products. So to do a life cycle analysis on a building, you need information from where? And I hope everyone understood today, from the manufacturing company. Where will it come from? Via digital product passports. So that's why we need a standard to say, this is the footprint, this is the technical characteristics, fire, sound, and so. And this is how we will define the information in a dictionary, set up a data template, add on the environmental characteristics for the product and the building as a whole. the dictionary part here, what is important to understand that this is for machines, not for humans. Sometimes I think people forget. So why do we use a dictionary? It's because machine A and B should have a common definition. This is something called GUIDs. And the data format on how to exchange data, that's to the next standard, that's the data template standard. What is really important? Who should define a property in interconnected dictionaries? It's not one dictionary, it's interconnected dictionaries. Who should define it? Of course, technical experts. So within your company, who should define information which is related to sustainability? It should be the experts on sustainability. So that's really important that this process standard includes having users online saying, because this is online, I want color to be added to the window because I need it. RAL codes, NCS codes, I need fire to be added because I'm doing fire requirements. So this process standard and how to define the content is really important. And with each, and this is the lacking point where the industry is today. Around one property or a group of properties, a data set, what is the metadata that we need? We need a lot of metadata around one property. That's why the French guys spend so much time. This is not a property. And then we have a version of a property. Version 1, version 2. I have a data set and I'm revising it. I'm putting in another. So you use version 1, version 2, version 3. This is a complex matter. But that's why we have worked within standardization to solve these problems. So the framework is there already. And as Pedro say, we can do it now. This is just to scare you off. This is the this is the data dictionary standard. I will not go in, and I can't even explain everything here. But what's really important here, that this is actually the framework for the machines. Okay? Think about machines. How can we standardize information so that it can be utilized over and over again? This is a UML. This is how we structure information around construction objects. This space, this product, this data template has properties or groups of properties with units, quantities, and enumerated value types. Sometimes we have AI30, AI45. You have to use them. Sometimes we measure. How do we measure a pipe? It's in meters. The diameter is in millimeters. Things like that. And the data template can use several sources. So what Oscar talked about is a part of the legislation. But of course, you might add either national or industry needs or my needs. It's up to you. The framework allows to stretch from the regulatory side to say, this is what I want because I need it. And then you can ask for information, of course. This is directly linked to ISO 19650. EPD data uses same thing. It's a data set for a product as the technical characteristics of a product is. So all of this is where the Commission says, and I'm saying, that we in buildingSMART and the construction industry needs to collaborate to define properties, objects in a dictionary. And that's where the perfect match between IFC and the regulation is there. You just have to figure out how to model it. But you shouldn't avoid, you should start looking at the CPR because it will push you in this direction as an industry. So that's it from me. I tried to explain a little bit about data dictionaries and data templates, there is one standard that I think I should mention, is the level of information needs, where the first is out, but it defines the object, the milestones, the purposes, and who is responsible. And I think this one is also very important in relation to our discussions. Thank you.
Thank you, Lars. I love it when people are so passionate, but it's a bit difficult for me because I need to manage time. So let me invite Ildiko Lieber, project manager at GS1 in Europe and leader of the GS1 Center of Excellence Construction and a former colleague. Thank you. So let me just move to the next slide. There you are. Yes.
Okay.
Thank you, Ildiko.
So does this work? Can you hear me? Okay. So I'm happy to be here, and I'm happy that I'm after Lars. So after this very interesting presentation about 4 ISO standards, I want to confuse you even more because I'm going to talk about the product identification. So first, just a few words about us, who we are as GS1. You probably heard some basic information yesterday as well about who we are. So basically, we are a global standardization organization. We have offices in 116 countries, and we are in contact with more than 2 million companies globally. And these companies are actively using our standards, actively meaning they can contact with the local GS1 member organizations anytime they want. In the past 15 years, we started with a single beep, a single scanning of a barcode in a retail. And today we are present in more than 20 industries with 6 billion beeps each day. And why is it important? Because scanning something, scanning a code, is basically how you connect a physical thing, a physical object, to something digital, to something information stored in a database. So just a few words about our core values. We are global, meaning we are global standards. Every identifiers which are in line with the GS1 rules are considered to be globally unique. And here, let me just add another ISO standard here. Maybe you heard about ISO 15459, which sets the rules of unique identification. GS1 is in this ISO standard, so it's compliant with it, and it's one of the issuing agencies listed by the standards. We are neutral, so we are non-profit, and we are also sector neutral, meaning our standards can be used by any sector and by any stakeholders on the value chain. We are open, so if you want to talk to us, please come to us. Our standards is available online. You can have a look into it anytime you want. And one of the most important things is that we are user-driven. As I mentioned, this standard was established 50 years ago, but it didn't stay in the same stage, of course. It developed in the past 50 years, and this development is always based on real business requirements coming from industry. They come to us, we collaborate, and we develop the standards together. So please come to us anytime, have a discussion with us. So just to give you an overview how our standards looks and works, we have basically 3 important pillars. So if you want to achieve interoperability with the global standards, you have to take 3 steps. The first step is unique identification. This is the heart and soul of the system. You have to identify your products, you have to identify your items, and beyond products, we can identify many, many other things through logistics, locations, even persons. So really, these standards can provide you anything you need in your system. When you identified something, you need to put it into a data carrier. It can be a barcode, it can be an RFID tag, it can be a linear barcode or a 2D barcode, or even a 2D barcode combined with a standardized syntax called the digital link. When you are done with the first two steps, you can step further and basically achieve an interoperable system that works in a very efficient and really cost-efficient way to communicate with, between databases and share information. So why is this today important? Because in the past centuries, I could say, we got used to having a linear economic system. And today, the big challenge ahead of us is that system is becoming circular, which means data will be crucial. Sharing data, being transparent on data, make it available will be critical. And the easiest way to make this data available is to have a right identification system. So what is happening today? I think the speakers before me talked about it a lot, so I'm not going to repeat it. Those were really, really great presentations. But we have a lot of challenge ahead of us. And this comes from just generic development of the economic system. It comes from legislatory push. It comes from user needs. But what is important, that unique identification and the unique identification number we call GTN will be one of the key factors that will play a role in the future. So let me just share some basic information how the GTN works. You might heard of it as GTN, but if you ever heard of the EAN number, it is the same. I could tell a story about why it is like that. It's historical, but after this session, you can come to me and I will share gladly this story with you. But how it works. So the manufacturer has a product which is identified with a GTN. And this is what the next step, when the next step happens, that if you have an identification number, you have to put it in some kind of data carriers. As I mentioned, these data carriers can be traditional barcodes or new type of barcodes like 2D barcodes. It can be even sophisticated, even more sophisticated like RFID tags, or you can even use the GS1 digital link. What this enables you is basically you will have a standard-based machine-readable information at your hand. Why is it important? Because then you can identify, you can use this identification number in your database. You can link other information relevant to that product in your database. Let it be properties. I'm sorry, I'm not French. I have to work on my French pronunciation. Or you can call it attributes. The key is that your product is globally identified in an unambiguous, unique way. You can link any type of information in it, and when you need to share it with other stakeholders in the value chain, you can do it in a structured, unambiguous way. So whatever aspect we look at today for digital transformation, it can be safety, it can be the need for sustainability, the requirement of traceability. The product identifier GS1 can provide has a key role in it. So if we look at today's environment, we can see that there are different factors today affecting how businesses can work together. And what we think is that GS1 standards are the essential ingredients that are needed for digital transformation. So today in the room, we brought you GS1 colleagues from 7 different countries. So please look for them in the room. Come to us, start a discussion with us, and please do not forget to participate during the afternoon on our breakout room session, where we can have an open discussion on all your needs, or what we can provide and how we can collaborate in the future. And in the future, if you have any questions, please do not hesitate to contact me anytime. And thank you for your attention, and I'm in time.
Thank you, Ildiko. If there's any questions, I guess afterwards.
You will have
plenty of time. Thank you very much. Let me now invite the hosts of this summit. Let me invite Richard, Kelly, and Arthur, and they will talk, provide you with some input for those who are not yet introduced into this on the world of buildingSMART, on buildingSMART Data Dictionary, on IFC, IDS, and all of those acronyms that both GS1 and buildingSMART love so much. Thank you.
Thank you, Enzo. Am I live? Yes, I
Yes.
can hear myself in my ears. Well, morning, everybody. Welcome. I'm Richard Kelly. This is my colleague, Arthur Tomczak. I've been asked to do an introduction to what buildingSMART is. And when I'm doing these things, I'm never quite sure who's going to be in the audience. So there will be some of the people, or quite a lot of people in this audience, who actually already know what it is that we're going to go through, or I'm going to go through now. If there are others in the audience for who this next 5 minutes is going to be new to, then I'm delighted. The rest of you, you can chant along as long as you keep in time. And then we'll get on to the good stuff, which Arthur's going to tell you about regarding the BSDD. So why are we here? We have a shared sense of purpose. We all have an industry aspiration, which is to determine the asset portfolio and make whole life management decisions, you know, throughout the life of a particular asset. We want to be able to make circular economy decisions as time goes on, because we need to, and we want to have a future where our cities and our infrastructure is sustainable and affordable in years to come. And the way that is going to be achieved is through interconnected data. So, connected data is needing to be software agnostic, and it needs to connect these 3 streams. It needs to be able to connect up and down the supply chain. It needs to be able to connect along an asset's life, and it needs to be able to connect at an appropriate level, whether it's a facility or a product or something in between that, which might be a system or a collection of systems. buildingSMART International is structured like this. We have chapters and we have members. These are the organizations that are part of our community and represent a lot of people at this summit. We also have 3 core programs: the user program, the solutions and standards program, and the compliance program. Our chapters are in over 30 countries. Think of these as our shareholders. They're not our shareholders, actually, they're our guarantors, because buildingSMART International is a neutral, not-for-profit and open organization. And these chapters also represent the user community, so they feed in the requirements to the central buildingSMART International machine. We have updated our purpose, and we have updated our vision, and we have updated our mission. And this now encapsulates more accurately what it is we're actually doing. But you can see that the purpose to bring together the global community to develop and implement open digital standards and services, enhance automation and decision-making across the built environment lifecycle, improving productivity, sustainability, and profitability. Everything's in there. We have key outputs. Our key outputs are recognizable to many of you, I'm sure, which are the IFC standard, the IDS standard, the BSDD, which you're going to hear a bit more about in a moment. But we also have services such as professional certification, software certification, and we're now offering a service of implementation called Accelerator Program. The buildingSMART ecosystem is our standards, our services, our process capabilities, and our people capabilities. So that sort of encapsulates everything that we offer to the community. We are demand driven, so we respond because users require us to exist. And the users are also the community. So it starts at the top with the user program, specifying requirements, then down to the solutions and standards program, which is the factory for making outputs, and then software vendors pick up what has been produced as a standard, encapsulate that standard into their software and sell it back to the user community. And what holds all that together in the middle is the buildingSMART process, which enables multiple people from multiple countries and multiple organizations to work together within buildingSMART with the correct level of governance to produce quality output. And that quality output is driven largely through executive teams that represent the industry, which we call domains. And these are the domains that are currently represented at buildingSMART. You'll notice that one of these is the product domain, and the product domain at the moment is doing many things, but it's also looking at material passporting, but it's looking at how to integrate the product manufacturers into the built asset life cycle. And Michelle Boren, who's here, is the chair of the product domain, and there are other product domain strategic committee people in the room. Michelle, would you mind standing up? And anybody else that's in the product domain that's here? Hans-Weli, I see you are here. Just the people who see you, Petra, hi. So these are some of the people that you should get to know as well. Thank you. We can skip that one. And then just finally from me, before I hand over to Arta, this represents the buildingSMART process, but it also represents the fact that we have this incubation phase as well for doing strategic thinking. So for thought leadership, we don't have to go straight into a project to deliver something. So there is an opportunity for the community to work together to produce a white paper before then moving on to maybe an activity proposal to have output that is then going to be useful to society, to the demand cycle, and so on and so forth. So that's buildingSMART International in a nutshell. I think that was 5 minutes, wasn't it, Arta? Of that order. Over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Richard, for introducing buildingSMART to everyone, even though I think it's quite known. As I was introduced, I'm Artur Tomczak. I'm the BSDD product manager, and the BSDD is buildingSMART solution for data dictionaries. I will not focus just on that. I want here today to explain how openBIM solutions facilitate what we are already hearing today, like data templates, dictionaries, the necessity to define what information we need to capture and share in our workflows. So let's start with this simple object. I hope it works. Yes, it works. So by looking at it, we can all tell it's a beam, so we can label it as a beam. But a beam, if we don't see the picture, it can have multiple meanings. It could be a laser beam. So we also need to agree on what's the meaning of that name. So we can define it as horizontal member, usually capable of carrying loads. And this is the definition coming from the IFC schema. The IFC, which is one of the most known standards from buildingSMART. But we don't need to write the whole description in our data sets, in our models. We can just reference it. And one of the ways to do that is we assign an identifier. This could be, GUID. We also recommend the identifiers in form of a link, which is we call URI. And with this, we can associate the meaning to our models. This is, I think, quite simple. But we also need to describe many different properties that describe our objects. And it could be geometrical, like height and width. It could be, for example, price or GT that we heard from GS1 today, or environmental properties like global warming potential. And that's not the end. Those are just names. Again, we also need to know what's the data type. Is it a number or a text? What's the unit? For example, centimeter or meter. Sometimes we want to also explain that this value is restricted. For example, height cannot be smaller than 0, or grade can only be one of the few possible values, or for example, DTIN has to follow certain pattern. And all of that we define in what we already heard today, a data dictionary. And this is a very simple example of a data dictionary, but you know how complicated it can get on projects. And BZD is a solution to share, to distribute the result of such agreements, the place to distribute data dictionaries. And Lars said today about interconnected data dictionaries. So the power of that is that we don't have to reinvent the same terms on every use case. We can just reuse what exists. For example, global warming potential is not unique to beams. It's universal. We define this for many products, so we can take the definition from product domain dictionary called LCA indicators. And this is the data dictionary part. But today we are also discussing the data templates. As we have heard, data templates are similar, but they are specific to a context and specific to purpose, milestone, and they capture similar information. So they can say that, okay, manufacturer needs to deliver information about the geometry, but they could be specific to, for example, sales, and say that it has to be supplied with DTIN and price, or it could be environmental PDT or EPD in this case, so the environmental product declaration. And the power of linking the two is that we reuse the same definitions without reinventing them. We've heard today from Oscar how important it is to share the data dictionary between all of the members. But I wanted to show how openBIM solutions support facilitating this implementation of these ideas. So let's get back to the left side, to the data. And the data could be coming from manufacturer, from the designer, and we often store that in models or in our data sets. In this case, I have just 3 properties: profile, length, and grade. And I know what they mean because I have a reference to a data dictionary, which can be stored in IFC model. So I know what's the meaning of each of the properties. And it's easy to check that the content is following the specification in an Excel table, but it's not that easy with BIM model with IFC. So we have another standard, which is called IDS, and this is a standard for specifications. So this standard tells you how to capture specifications in a way that is easy to read for humans, but also interpret by machines. So let's take the first data template, the one on the top. We know that we need height, length, grade, and profile. So we just transcribe it into this IDS format. And because this is machine interpretable, we can automatically check if the data in IFC model is compliant. So there are already many tools that exist that are capable of doing that. And as you see, in this case, the profile is there, the grade is there, the height is not there, so we have error, and the length is there, but it has a wrong unit. So this is also a problem. So with IDS, you can check if the data is correct. You can gain more trust in it. And I think IFC, IDS, and BSDD, or data dictionaries in general, can support implementing all of what we discussed today. So thank you very much. If you want to hear more about this, we have dedicated BSDD sessions tomorrow and the IDS challenge that explains how already existing software tools implement this idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard and Thomas. Arthur, sorry. Sorry, getting a bit mixed up here. So we're almost at the coffee break. It is my duty now to try and make a connection between all of these elements. What is important, I think, is that we have the full breadth of, from the start, the design, conceptual element, all the way down to what is called end of life, but I've been told we are not to say end of life, it's second life, because we are trying to get rid of any additional waste. So we go from as designed to as built, as used, because let's not forget the use phase is very long, operation, maintenance, and then at the end, well, you need to know what is going to happen with the different elements, the different products. And I like the example of the Rockwool case. And it's funny because Rockwool is a brand, is a copyright, but you use it a bit like Coca-Cola as a generic term. So it was quite interesting to hear you say that. How do we fit in there? And I think it starts with the conceptual part of BIM and with buildingSMART International. We work with the data templates, data dictionaries to make the link between the conceptual, the generic, to the actual physical products, which of course is work for GS1, the GTIN. So basically, what I always said is the GTIN or the EN or the UPC is the first digital twin that was existing, because it made the connection between a physical object and the data in what is a computer back in the time. And of course, GTIN and DPP, I think it has been quite clear how those are linked together. And at the end, you have the recycling part. So I think you have 10 different ways of reusing a product. All start with R, so the 10 R's: repurpose, reuse, recycle, and I forgot all the other 7 ones. But I'm sure somebody will talk about them during the day. And all of that, of course, needs to happen with interoperability. And how do you get this interoperability? By using open standards, making sure that you can communicate between each other. That is the data part. You will not be able to achieve this if you do not digitize. And it's not about getting from a paper sheet to an Excel file. It's not going from a paper sheet to a PDF file. No, it really is dynamic data that you can exchange, and where computers can work with that data in an efficient way and repeatable, so that it can be repeated, that we do not have to reinvent the wheel every time again. So where are we today now in the agenda? We have covered the first part, basically giving you the basics, and just after the coffee break, we will start with use cases. Very interesting use cases. As said, we've got 10 use cases that will be presented from different aspects, and that will be quite, I'm sure, quite interesting for you to learn. We will have one part, 1.5 hours before lunch, 1 hour after lunch, and then we get into the more dynamic part, which is panel discussion and some breakout rooms. Yeah. So have a great coffee, and we'll come back here in, wow, 28 minutes. We kept right on time. Thank you very much.